Welcome, everyone, to the final live stream before we go live with the actual Fabric February event. It's going to be amazing. And today we are fortunate to be joined by our fantastic friend, Evidi. And just a quick note, for those of you who know me, know that I also work for Evidi. So I will be very careful putting on my Fabric February organizer today and be a Fabric February representative, although I also work for Evidi. With that said, I am going to welcome on stage our amazing, fantastic Evidi friends today, Anders and Erlend. And with that, Anders, maybe you can tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we'll pass it on to Erlend.
Yes, sure. First, thank you for being able to be on this live stream with you. Yes, my name is Anders Krohn. I work as a lead consultant at Evidi. I've been working there since October 2023. Formal education is in child and youth care, but I've been in IT for the past 13 years in very various roles. I have a passion for data and love to work full stack from diving deep into code and also up to stakeholder management. Other than that, I like to brew my own beer and practice martial arts.
Fight and drink.
Yeah.
Yes, fight and drink.
Good combination. I'm Erlend Øien. I started in Evidi 1 month after Anders and working as a senior consultant. My formal background is in computer science, but so I have developer experience and machine learning stuff. But right now I'm working as a data engineer, also full stack, using Fabric. And shortly, I really like baking and also tasting Anders's beer. It's really good.
Very cool. So as you can hear, you have very different backgrounds, different years of experience. But the one thing that you have in common is both of you, or actually all of us, were pretty new into the Fabric world. And I would say whether you call them fabricators or fabric analytics engineers, you are now both working as that kind of person. So what we want to talk about here today is a little bit about your experience. You've been working for over a year now in production in different projects, and a little bit about sharing your tips for those coming into Fabric who are new Fabric analytics engineers. So with that, maybe you could share a little bit about the projects that you're working on, kind of who the customer is, and if you want to share all the nerdy details, talk a little bit about architecture and what you do, what parts of Fabric that you chose, yeah, we'll just take it from there. So who wants to go first?
I can start. So I'm working on a migration project from SSIS on premises, moving up to the cloud for various reasons. But one overarching vision is to make the data more democratized and make it available to self-service, because it's a large customer, it's a large members organization. So I really want to enable every part of the organization to become data-driven. So that is really moving from SSIS, SQL-based, and using a medallion architecture and notebooks primarily for the transformation steps. And that has been quite a journey, because we don't really just want to migrate the existing code, but you also want to try to improve and learn from the challenges using the current model, and try to utilize all the benefits of using Python and PySpark to do your transformations and modeling. So you're not stuck with dynamic SQL issues, for instance. So this was my first large-scale data engineering project, and coming from developer experience, it's not quite the same working in notebooks all the time. Yeah, you are used to doing it for data science purposes, but usually you're accustomed to having a full IDE, having the debugger experience and stuff. So that is quite different. But the large scale thing now is we have established a framework and using copy activities and a mix of notebooks and pipelines for orchestrations, which works really, really well. But it's been quite a journey from starting in January last year, having roughly 1 year of, or the project has lasted for roughly 1 year by now. So quite a journey. It's still a lot of work ahead, but it's really, really fun to see kind of the challenges we had using the platform at the beginning, and now how far it has come already.
Yeah, I could talk a little bit about my project. I was fortunate enough to be kind of tossed into a Fabric project day one in Evidi. And I've been working full time on that since October 2023, so almost 1.5 years now. The background for our project is similar to Erlend's, where they had the on-prem SQL Server and a very old reporting solution. They wanted to upgrade that into a more modern and scalable solution. And they were actually one of Evidi's first customer that said, okay, let's go with the Fabric. So we are building that data warehouse from scratch. We use Lakehouse and Medallion architecture, which for me was quite new. I think for all of us. So I had to learn a lot of new technology, like Lakehouse. What is a Lakehouse? And Medallion architecture. What is that? And notebooks. But I quickly realized that the concepts of data modeling and data engineering are the same, even though the technology changed. So Fabric gives you the opportunity to interact with the data in the way that you like. So if you come from a SQL background, or you're most comfortable with Power Query, or even notebooks, Fabric enables you to interact with the data in the way you want.
Yeah.
Which is really great. So we have in Evidi, we have solutions that are based on Power Query, and we also have in the project that I'm working on, we use Olin notebooks, and we schedule them with the data factory pipelines. For us, it's mostly now financial data, also project data with a little bit of HR. We are building a fully fledged data warehouse, so we are planning on also getting data from legacy systems, and we also export the data. So we get the data, we enrich it, and then we ship it on further to other systems. So I'm lucky enough to have also 3 other colleagues working on the same projects. We are really working as a team, and working with the Git and version control, and building an enterprise solution. So it's really fun. I learn something new every day. Fabric is cutting edge technology. We have experienced, I think, all possible errors we can get, and figuring them out in the team and in Evidi in our department. But I've also utilized Microsoft support quite a bit.
Yeah. I was really, I just had a brief introduction to Databricks before coming into Fabric. Mm-hmm. And the first thing I remember from our meeting with you guys was you had a demo of a setup of a lakehouse at your current project, Anders. And I was like, mm-hmm. But why are there multiple lakehouses? Shouldn't there be one lakehouse? So it took some time to just map these concepts, because they are the same. It's just how you package them, and really seeing the similarities with Databricks, with other conceptually data modeling and frameworks, because even though they might name things differently, they're just abstractions which really map quite well to another. So that is really fun to see relatively how transferable the experience and knowledge is. And as I said, medallion architectures are sometimes described, I think, from the SQL background, they might say, oh, this is a different paradigm, but high level, for me at least, it seems like it's same. You do a stage-wise transformation and load, and then you have the underlying scalable technology, and do you extract or do you transform or do you load before transformations or whatever. But it's really quite similar in my opinion. It's just that you have files, or instead of having databases or schemas between each layer.
Yeah, and you both mentioned that you are not starting completely from scratch. You're starting with SSIS solution, on-premises SQL Server. And with that, I think one of the tips that we can share here with the audience, and we've pre-prepped this, like this is not just coming out of my brain here, is use your existing skill set to your advantage. Now, obviously, you had to you had to dig into SSIS, and I'm sorry, Alan, that you had to do that instead of just starting completely from scratch. But building on this tip here, use your existing skill set to your advantage. How would you explain to someone coming in who might feel overwhelmed about all the different possibilities? Like you have to do things in notebooks or SQL. How do you kind of pick and choose which technologies to use, which parts of Fabric, and what are kind of your best tips for using that skill set?
Yeah. So what I mean by that tip is, firstly, if you're delivering something to a customer that's like we are as a consultant company, then it's important to understand what are the skill set of the customer. Are they planning on taking this over someday? If they are coming mostly from Excel and used to Power Query, then it makes sense to use data flows, because then they are able to come in and understand what is happening and maybe create their own data flows. If they are really SQL-based team, then warehouse or T-SQL notebooks is the way to go. And also, if you as a consultant is mostly comfortable with notebooks and PySpark like Erlend was, then of course it makes sense to also use that. That comes back to what I said, that Fabric enables you to choose what you're comfortable and what you need. So for example, you can load everything in with notebooks or data pipelines, but into bronze. But maybe from bronze to silver, you want to use data flows or something else. And then for the final layer, you might want to use a warehouse and T-SQL and store procedures. That's fine. There is no kind of one true answer. There are multiple ways of solving it, and Fabric really enables you to use what you're comfortable with and able to do.
Yeah, I totally.
The next step, but you can.
Yeah, no, I was just to say that yeah, using your skill set, but also there's been quite a lot of good articles on like the importance of using the technology and the skill set of your customer to have them actually have a true adaptation of your service. And you don't want to just create something which they can't really maintain or handle themselves. So that was also one of the reasons why in our notebooks or our notebook transformation framework, we are using domain business logic transformations in Spark SQL. So we pretty much have like PySpark code to do the load and extraction and prepare the data, and we do the actual transformations in Spark SQL, which makes it a lot easier for internal stakeholders and technical users to make changes to the business logic where they are the experts, and on the domain logic. And that is really, really cool, because we've seen throughout the progress as our platform has matured, they have been able to take gradually more and more ownership to each layer, starting from kind of the Power BI and semantic layer where they are really the experts, and now seeing how the gold layer isn't really what we need, being able to do changes there, and now also moving backwards, which is really cool, because then they can kind of gradually learn the framework and start with concepts they already know. There's no exact way, but I think it's been really helpful, and also, but also there are some limitations, like using Spark SQL, because then you also kind of are limited to the challenges you had of SQL transformations to begin with. So you need to find a mix, and I think that is really the powerful feature of notebooks, having just easily mix Python and Spark SQL, and also having the able to simply have like the nice features of developers to have syntax highlighting and autocomplete and so on, which is really nice too, because you don't want to write SQL queries in a text editor if you would do like spark.sql kind of thing.
I mean, if you want to, I'm sure you can write SQL in Notepad, or Vim maybe. I don't know if you can even copy and paste from there, but use the tools that are good.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah. If you even manage to exit Vim at some point.
Yeah.
I've actually learned how to do that just so I can impress people with my nerd skills.
Yeah, like a T-shirt. I know how to exit Vim. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But coming in, like obviously you've been working on these projects for over a year now. At this point, it's kind of established. But I'm assuming, as with most technologies being cutting edge or bleeding edge, it's in the name. It's going to hurt, right? And I know that you have been through a couple of things that may not have been as straightforward. So when you're looking back at kind of your experience, your 1.5 years in Fabric, what would you say were your biggest pain points in your projects, and how did you overcome those pain points?
That is a very good question. And I also talk a little bit about that in our presentation.
We call out on that. So just to say, Anders and Aaron will both be presenting at Fabric February, of course, which is also a reason why you are here doing this live stream. So if you want to go and check out their sessions, go to fabricfebruary.com/schedule. Sorry for interrupting. Go.
No problem. So one of the issues we had was that we started by ingesting data through event streams, which at the time seemed like a good solution because Evidi also is delivering an integration platform. So we were able to kind of like get served the data. So we started by ingesting data directly into the bronze layer lakehouse. We had some issues that we couldn't foresee, like the data was coming from different sources. We had some schema evolution, which was problematic. The new columns were just kind of shaved off. We also had issues with data streams stopping without any apparent reason. I'm sure this has improved in the past 1.5 years since we started moving away from it. But the consequence of that was that we started ingesting data through files from Azure Data Lake. So one of the benefits, really big benefits of Lakehouse is that you also have the power of shortcuts. So we have the integration team deliver all the files we need, neatly structured in folders in Data Lake, and then we can just shortcut that into our bronze Lakehouse. And we can also shortcut between. So that was one of the pain points that we had, was figuring out, yes, shortcut all the things. So this has also been a learning journey for the past years after we talked to different people and learned how things work. And one of the powers of OneLake is that you don't have to materialize or save things many times. You can shortcut from bronze to silver or between lakehouses or between workspaces. So that's a really powerful thing, shortcutting. And we're also now looking into mirroring how that works and how that could enable us to do even more.
And I think that is actually really interesting. Kind of like what we said earlier, there's no one true way. There is no like one solution that fits all, and don't worry about experimenting. But I also think it's kind of interesting to see that you're going from what looked to be a good solution and then ending up with you know what, the good old tried way of using files actually works better for your use case. And I would say that the reason for that is because you didn't have an actual real-time project, right? So it was
Correct.
more about, yes, I think that is kind of important to say.
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
have real time, obviously that is a good solution. But for working with financial data, you can do real time, but maybe it turns out that the old way is still a good, valid way.
The requirement was update the data once a day. So we refreshed and ran all our jobs once a day. But since we were able to get things served in the event streams, we thought that was a good solution. But it didn't fit our use case. And I'm sure event stream will work perfectly for other projects. But for our use case, it was initially the wrong architecture.
Yeah, and that comes to like when we started and we wanted to do ingesting our data, we do have some on-prem SQL sources, of course, but you also have a large range of just public APIs or private APIs and so on. So a lot of our data we could have ingested through notebooks, and some of them we are, and some of them we are just using copy activities in data pipelines because they are so simple to set up, and also the only already scalable way to ingest from on-premises sources. You do have data flows with the new copy. What is it called again? Like the scalable copy. Yeah. But having just mixed them, and it just works well because you have established kind of how you want to save and store your data in your bronze or as files really. So it really simplifies, and it gives a lot of flexibility when you need to handle all the different sources, and you don't really, if they're simple, you can do it. And also with the new changes to the copy job updates now, I think that it has become even simpler. But regarding like our pain points, we started straight off the bat with direct lake models and direct lake models in 1 year ago. Like it looked really good on the surface, and like the model itself worked fine, but the challenges were really with the application lifecycle management tooling, because it couldn't deploy it. Like one thing, it wasn't version controlled, but you also couldn't deploy it using deployment pipelines, and so there wasn't really any good ways to move your model from development to test or deployment, which was really challenging, and some really great articles on kind of workarounds and hacking and changing the compatibility levels, and that could work. So that was maybe one of the biggest changes, I think, was before, like in April last year or something, when they did support CI/CD for Direct Lake. It was a game changer really to have production workloads using Direct Lake. So I think a lot of our main pain points, they have been solved throughout the last year. But still, there are always things you want to improve or things you're kind of missing. But for instance, from like a developer and DevOps perspective, when we have service principal support for application management lifecycle APIs, that is when I'm truly happy. Then I'll be able to automate all the things, because having manual steps is really cumbersome, and it is really a source of errors and inconsistencies in your deployment. So coming into this, coming into Fabric and Power BI at this point, where a couple of years ago it didn't seem like version control was really much a thing. Like you used OneDrive or whatever for version control was crazy to me. So I think I joined the landscape and joined the technology at the right time, with all of the push with TMDL, with the Visual Code extensions, and the new PBIR format and so on. It's really, I think it's really cool what Microsoft is pushing and going for more open formats in Power BI as well.
Yeah, I agree. Those are really cool improvements, and things are just getting better, basically. And I think you mentioned a little bit about application lifecycle management, the code development tools. What would you say about working as a team? And this is, I'm throwing it right at you, Amish, because I know that you have a lot of experience with this. Setting up things like Git, application lifecycle management, and working as a team. That is part of your presentation at Fabric February, I think. But if you can summarize your session into like 5 minutes, what do you think are like the top tips for our viewers here if they want to start doing that?
Yeah. So we are now 4 people at my project, and we are working with we have different environments, dev, test, and prod, and we need to be able to develop on the same things at the same time. Like, for example, semantic models. Git support for working with semantic models and reports is fairly new. It was like September 1.5 years ago, with the introduction of the PBIP format. So we needed to figure out a good way of working with Git, and 3 out of 4 didn't really have much experience with Git, but we had one guy who came from a software development background who was able to teach us kind of how Git works, and then we looked at how is Microsoft supporting it, and we found a good way of doing it with the good help of Erlend and you, Catherine. Also, we had internal discussions how to do this the best way, and the way we are doing it is we have our own developer workspaces where we can branch out and create our own feature branches. So our dev environment is connected to main, kind of the best or the main code base, and then we take a copy of that out in our own local environment, either locally on our machine or in Fabric, and we're able to then develop new features and fix stuff and work on it, and then we can merge that back into the main code base. So good tips for working as a team is that you have to have close collaboration to ensure that you're not working on actually the same thing at the same time. If you have merge conflicts and you're unsure, call your colleague and ask, what is this, and learn together, because some people will always be better at some things than others. So talk through things, document things, agree on how to name your branches, commit messages, merge strategies, stuff like that.
Yeah, but I think, even though, because I tried to explain, because I was sure that those are really good ideas, but then you have pushback because people are not used to working with Git, and that is really helpful because you need a reason about, oh, is this really necessary? Should I? But having, for instance, good commit messages or a clean Git history is really, really nice when you're trying to trace back. For instance, when you go through some notebook and like, oh, this doesn't look right. And you can actually go back and trace back and see what changes have been made easily, and also figure out maybe who did the changes, and then you can ask them, oh, right, why did we do this, and why isn't the previous change included or whatever, because there's maybe happened a merge error or whatever. So, and of course, if you're a small team, you might not need all of this feature, and now Fabric is pushing like the version history both in semantic models and notebooks themselves. So you have a lot of that built in already. But I think that has been helpful, and also, of course, for if you want to roll back the environment.
That's a very good point. I would argue that it's now that I know how good it is, it's you should do it even though it's a small project, because of the rollback option and opportunity. So previously, when you published a Power BI report or a semantic model, and if you introduced an error and you didn't have a copy of how it used to be, this is now your new life. So now you have the possibility to roll back.
Yeah.
That's really good.
But regarding pain points, I'm really, really looking forward to when they have like the built-in easy Git diff in Fabric in workspaces, because right now you aren't always sure, like, oh, there are some changes here.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
So you're like, oh, have I done something important? And now you can sort of look into your snapshots. It doesn't always work. So that is something I'm really looking forward to. And one of the benefits of like being able to work locally in VS Code or other solutions. But I think that is some of the challenges like Databricks has had as well, like having good tooling to work with Databricks or Fabric outside of the browser using VS Code or other IDEs. So that's also, I see they are making up this, and I'm really, really hoping for improvements there, because there's some key functionality which isn't available now. And sometimes you just want to work locally and have your full-fledged IDE to help you and debugging and so on.
Yep. Great. Yeah. So we started with branching out in Fabric and doing changes in Fabric, but we see that a lot of things we want to do locally, especially with the now you have the options working with the TMDL format. There are a lot of things you can do directly in the code. You don't have to open the Power BI desktop file. So if you're planning on making changes in all your reports, you have to kind of manually open them. Now it's easy to just copy paste. And if you have a measure table, you can copy that between semantic models. Stuff like that. But other things are easier to do in the Fabric interface. If you need to kind of open reports, or if you need to just do a small change, you don't have to. It's faster to do in the Fabric interface. So, but the say moral of the story is you should learn Git and invest some effort into that, especially if you're working as a team.
Yeah, I think it's valuable, and it's also applicable to so many other scenarios. You could do version control on anything. So, and also having kind of one thing is having the idea of how it works, like conceptually, but also being able to use Git locally with the command line. I find helpful, because you can be so more expressive in what you want to do and how you want to fix things. So it really works well when everything goes fine, but when there occurs an issue and we really want to roll back, or we want to cherry pick, you want to do anything slightly more complex, like having the ability to pull down your repo locally and do those changes and kind of revert, it's really, really magical. And there's so many, like, you can also just have help from any generative AI model to explain what Git commands you need to do.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Or some people who have felt the need to get some help in understanding Git. There are certain resources that can help you if you get stuck on something as well. This is just from my personal experience. Command line and Git, we are not the best of friends. So I am very grateful that tools like VS Code is helping me just putting things in the interface and so on. But I think what you said there were some excellent points in the entire span of working with, I would say, just like not Git in itself, but version history and having control of the changes that you make. Everything going from the built-in features now, where you can save like the semantic model history and create, like, I would say, manual checkpoints or manual versions for those who are maybe coming more from the business side, who don't want to touch Git. They don't want to work with Visual Studio Code. It's none of their business doing all of that stuff. They can still kind of have control of that by using the interface in Fabric. And then all the way into working locally and working mostly code base using PBIR, TMDL, lots of abbreviations here, in Visual Studio Code, and basically doing development without looking at the semantic model or reports in the service at all. And then you can even expand that further into, are you one person just using source control and Git as like your code versioning history? You just, you save it, you have a backup of your code, and you're good to go, into working as a team where you kind of have to manage different branches and things like that. So I think you have some excellent points there. And kind of key takeaway from what I'm hearing is find what works for you. That enables
Yes.
you as a developer to work better, you as a team, and just make sure that in whatever way you're working, have a backup of your code.
Yeah.
I think that is a lesson learned for me in my projects as well. If you delete something in Fabric, it's gone. So you do want that external backup somewhere.
Or isn't there like 7 days of retention? So you could probably send like a support ticket, but
maybe. Anders, you have some best friends in Microsoft support
Yes.
from working this year, so I'm sure they can help you if that occurs. But I would say keep it in Git anyway is a good key takeaway there.
Very valuable tool to learn in general, and I'm very happy I invested time in learning it and had the pleasure of having a colleague having the patience to teach it to me.
Yeah, but also like we have to be honest, Git and doing like the entire pull request review process, it does add overhead, especially if you enforce that is the only way you're allowed to make changes.
Yes.
Then like, oh, here is one typo. I have to do like checkout, PR, review, and merge, sync. So it's not without cost. So you really, like Catherine said, you have to figure out kind of what is the trade-off. But having a large team where there are so many different changes, and also when you have team standards of how we want to define the transformations, like having a review session or like a code review really helps to manifest and fix bugs early on.
Yes.
Really.
Yes. And that works really well with, say, backend stuff like notebooks, where it's easy to see. If you work with semantic models and reports, if you just move a visualization or do tiny change and you save, you will get like 7 different changes and very difficult to interpret. That's why commit messages are really good. So commit often and write good commit messages, because if you will have someone else approve your PR and they have to look through 7 different files if you just made a small change, and then you can look at the commit message and see that this is probably okay.
Yeah, everyone loves PRs with tens of files with thousands of lines changed.
Yes.
Okay. Just looking at the time, I want to make sure that we cover one of the other things as well. So I'm just going to throw this up on the screen and pass it over to you, Adam, because this is something that you, coming from that data science background, you kind of introduced to the rest of us in Evidi. And I think that when you hear things about SemPy and semantic link labs, I'll let you explain what it is. It's kind of tied to data science. But then when you look at it, it's not. So it can be super, super powerful. And just to call out as well, you will be talking a little bit about this at Fabric February. But if you are to summarize like the key takeaways here, what would that be?
I think it enables like a programmatic, easily accessible way to get access to your semantic model data. You had options to like modify your semantic models with tabular editor and stuff, but then you need to do program in C#. So for those who are like Python native, or I think Python is kind of, someone call it a toy language, but I think it's so much more accessible to access your semantic model. And also now they're expanding with having options to kind of change and programmatically access your the metadata of your schema, semantic model schema, and do pretty much like everything, do modeling as code for semantic models, which is really cool. But I think like the use case, what our use case pitch for the Fabric February presentation is really how can you utilize that to do machine learning and really enrich your semantic models that way. But another really useful case, and which we use at our current project, is having programmatic testing of your semantic model, because you can do so many things in the golden layer to ensure that the numbers are slightly correct and simulate kind of the measures in SQL. But really, we also want to have the correct syntax filter context which you use in your reports, for instance. With UDAX, especially if you have like time intelligence measures. So now you can execute measures using Python and evaluate that, oh, this seems likely or is correct, but you can also do really advanced data quality and data quality checks with frameworks, which is really, really powerful. And you can also do regression testing. So when you have a team and you're making one change in a semantic model, but there maybe are several reports using that semantic model, you really want to ensure that you don't break an edge case in one of the other reports. So having the ability to like verify your semantic model programmatically and then check it against, for instance, the production or dev model and see, oh, right, I only changed what I wanted to change. I think that is a really, really great way to ensure, because you don't want to find out like 2 weeks later, someone like randomly finds a bug and like, oh yeah, that was probably due to the one change you did 2 weeks earlier. And yeah, so that is, in short, a great way to just access your semantic model without having to scroll through several report pages or writing specific DAX queries. You can do it like you can have all the power of Python around that.
Yeah, and I think for me, this kind of blew my mind, because the first time I heard about the Senpai in general, which is basically just semantic link Python, I think is the abbreviation you could say, and semantic link labs. Like the way that Microsoft explains it is that you can use machine learning and then use semantic link to kind of enrich your data with the output from machine learning. And then you dig into it and you realize that you get access to your entire semantic model just programmatically and using the power of Python. And then when I realized that, it opened up my mind to so many other possibilities. Like you say, just doing testing, or even using Python to look at all the metadata that you have in your semantic model. I think this is a really good tip. I think it's a little bit outside what you think of in general when you think of a fabric analytics engineer, but I think it's a really cool tool to have in your toolbox when you go out and you create your projects.
Yeah, and especially just having, I think, shout out to Semantic Link Labs, which is now officially open sourced and maintained by Microsoft, which is kind of the experimental version of Senpai, the package. And they are really making a lot of cool, helpful utility functions there, which you can simplify. You don't have to use the APIs. They're like wrappers around the APIs, but they're also really, really good functions, which just helps a lot in your daily tooling. And when, for instance, if you have shortcuts, you want to maintain that you don't have to manually add shortcuts when you're changing environments. You want to ensure that those shortcuts are there. So programmatically creating those shortcuts is really, really helpful. And so I think pretty much whenever anyone asks questions in our team chat regarding something about, oh, can I do this programmatically, or can I verify this? I'm like, just instantly checking the semantic link labs documentation, and like, oh, have they released a function for this yet? Because now with the PBIR format, you can now, for instance, verify that all of your measures are used, or which aren't used, so you can actually clean up your semantic models because they're not used in any reports. And of course, you've had third-party tooling before, but now it's so easily accessible within Fabric. I think because there's a lot of great third-party tools, but having it just right there makes it so much more accessible.
And I must say, it's a pleasure working with you, Erlend, especially when you say over the weekend has tested some new functionality, or you are good at informing us about what are the new features, and you're really good at that and help opening our eyes to the possibilities.
And that was the perfect segue.
I know.
I mean, it's just like magic, Anish. I think you can take over this hosting thing.
Yeah. So I was leaning into that segue. Yeah.
Yes, perfect. Yes. Excellent job there. I think if you kind of look away from the technical side of things, like there are obviously a million things that you need to learn and understand in Fabric. You can't do it all alone. none of us can. I think that if you try to learn all the things in Fabric and stay up to date on every single thing, like that is a full-time job in itself.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So what are your kind of best tips for staying up to date, or
Yes.
kind of making sure that you understand and learn about all these new features, how to use them?
Yeah. One thing is to read the blog and watch the YouTube videos from Microsoft and what is new. The other thing is that Reddit r/Microsoft Fabric is an excellent community. There's like 9,900 members there now. People who ask questions, to share their knowledge. A lot of Microsoft employees are also on there. So I've experienced several times that when I have an issue or others have an issue, employees from Microsoft that are part of the engineering team comes in there and answer. And it's good to read what other people are struggling with, and then you can help them and they can help you. We at Evidi are fortunate enough to now be 23 consultants strong. So whenever one of us has a problem, we have 22 others who can help us. So we kind of have that network internally. But for people who don't have that, the blog and especially the Reddit, the subreddit is a really good place to be.
Yeah. And even though not everyone really loves LinkedIn, I think that is a really good source within the data space. There are so many talented people and so many good writings. So tuning your LinkedIn algorithm, it really, really helps out so many aspects and benchmarks, and people are doing rigorous testing and evaluations of different aspects, especially now with the Python notebooks and benchmarking there, and really looking into kind of the applicability in production use cases for this. It's really, really valuable. So yeah, building network and yeah, Reddit, but also trying to follow people who write quality content and are willing to share, because that is really, really meaningful. But also, yeah, going to the conferences. Fabric February last year was incredible.
Yes.
I think, and that was kind of my first meeting with the data community, and they were so warming and so many talented people, and you could ask them afterwards, and they would willingly share so many valuable lessons. So that was a lot of fun, and I think every nerd is happy to talk about nerdy things. So it's so easy to get to know them and have really, really valuable and like knowledge and experience sharing, because the technology is so new still. So you might have tried something that not many else has tried or really validated. So it's really like a low bar to contribute something meaningful.
And this year, you're both on stage. So you are really embracing the whole sharing your knowledge and sharing your experiences. How has that been for you, kind of going from, coming into new projects, learning new technologies, and then taking it like all the way up to the big stages? Because it's not just Fabric February, you've been presenting at other conferences as well.
Yeah, so we both presented at FabCon Stockholm, Europe last year. Was a blast. I think I think I wouldn't have done it if I wouldn't have like inspirations within the team, like you, Catherine, who are just saying like, "Oh, apply. It can't hurt. Like, just write something you want to share and are passionate about." And I think that is the key. Like, in the community, like it's so wide. There's so many topics. So figuring out the topic you find interesting, you care about, which you are willing to share, and then you can learn along the way, but also maybe lessons you have learned. So that was really fun, and a really, really warm welcome from the stage and from the first presenting session. So it was really, really, afterwards I was like, this is something I really, really want to do again. So it kind of it's not I wouldn't say addictive because it sounds horrible, but yeah.
It is. And for me, just observing you after your first session at Fabric Conference in Stockholm, the conversations that you had after presenting, the people coming up asking questions, having those discussions, hearing from what other people do in their projects, completely different from what you have. I think that is also really good for you personally, because you get exposed to so many more things than just reading the official blogs and so on.
Yeah.
And I was hesitant at first to present at all, because I was afraid that people will call me out on things and telling me that's not correct or you don't know anything. But then you told us that it's about our experience and what interests us, and this is how we interpreted it, or this was our way of learning it and understanding it, and hopefully that could help others as well. And kind of that mind switch. Not that I'm coming up there to present the facts on this is how it should be done, rather than this is how we do it, or I do it, and this is how I understand it. And maybe people have questions, and how did you interpret this? And you had this problem. This is how I solved it. So it was a great way to connect with people, and we learned a lot by making the presentations. So I'm really looking forward to presenting again, talking about everything I've learned in the past 1.5 years. It will be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Very much looking forward to that. And just one final thing. I showed this tip earlier, but I think this is super important. You don't have to get up on stage at conferences like Fabric February or Fabric Conference to share things. You can start easy by sharing things internally with your coworkers. You can write on LinkedIn. You might want to start a blog, or use things like you mentioned with the subreddit, or even on the Fabric official community forums. But I think one thing we can all learn from is that there is no solution. There is no one true way to all of the projects that we are building in Fabric. And I think sharing your knowledge is just going to help everyone in the community as a whole. And I'm looking at the time, and I see that we are actually getting very close to having chatted here for an hour. So I think it's a good time to wrap it up. And just mention that it's just a few days until Fabric February 2025 kicks off. We're all super excited. I can't wait. And with that, one final question that is super, super important. What is your favorite snack? Erlend?
I hope we get the donut with the glazing. That was really, really good. But anything pastry and baking that is my weak spot.
Anders?
Yeah, I'd go with ice cream, like the soft ice machine with the sprinkles and stuff. Anything ice cream and chocolate. That's my vice.
Yeah, we're going in there for a sugar rush for sure.
Definitely.
And I can let you know that there will be both donuts and ice cream again this year. So if you haven't already bought your ticket to Fabric February, we are getting close to like the very final last, I would say 10, 20 tickets, I think. Make sure you get your ticket today. And with that, I want to say a massive thank you to you, Anders and Erlend, for doing this live stream with us at Fabric February, sharing some great tips, experiences, and lessons learned. And if you want to hear more from Anders and Erlend, you can meet them at Fabric February. With that, I think we're just going to wrap it up. Any final words that you want to share before we play the outro music?
It's been a pleasure. Always a pleasure talking to you, and it's been great being here on this live stream. I'm really looking forward to Fabric February and hoping to see a lot of people there. And please approach us if you have any questions, or if we can help you with anything.
Don't hesitate. I really love to talk to a lot of the people who are there, because there's so many experiences, so many knowledgeable people there. So really looking forward to talking to a lot of great people there.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you at Fabric February. Bye.
Bye.